A single Humira pen, the best-selling drug in the world, costs $2,669 in the United States. In Germany, that same pen cost $148. Same drug, same company, same molecule, 10 times cheaper, 6,000 miles away. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that gap exists, who built it, and why it has almost nothing to do with the cost of making the drug. Most Americans believe drug prices are high because research is expensive. And that is the story. Pharmaceutical companies have spent billions of dollars telling you. The industry points to a famous number, $2.6 billion to develop a single new drug from the Tufts Center for the Study of Drug Development. That sounds like a reasonable justification. Until you find out that the Tufts Center receives significant funding from the pharmaceutical industry itself. And until you look at what that $2.6 billion actually includes, it counts the opportunity cost of money spent over time, not just actual lab expenses. Independent researchers at Memorial Sloan Kettering found the real out-of-pocket cost for many drugs is closer to $650 million. The R&D story is real, but it is being used to justify prices 10 times higher than it actually explains. So what is actually driving the price? Here is exactly how it works. In the United States, the federal government is legally prohibited from negotiating drug prices for Medicare. That's not an oversight, that is a law. It was written into the Medicare Modernization Act of 2003, passed by Congress and signed by President George W. Bush. Before that bill passed, the pharmaceutical industry spent $116 million lobbying Congress in a single year. The result, Medicare, which covers over 65 million Americans, is the only major national health insurer in the developed world that cannot tell a drug company the price is too high. Every other developed country does the exact opposite. Canada has the Patented Medicine Prices Review Board. The UK has the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, called NICE. Germany has a process called AMNOG, introduced in 2011. All of these systems do one thing. The government sits across the table from the drug company and negotiates. If the company refuses, the drug cannot be sold. That leverage changes everything. In the US, there is no leverage. A drug company can name any price and Medicare must pay it. Now add patents. When a pharmaceutical company gets FDA approval for a new drug, they receive 20 years of patent protection. During that window, no generic competitor can enter the market, but companies have learned to extend that window using a tactic called evergreening. They make minor modifications to the drug, a new coating, a slightly different dosage form, a new delivery method, and file a new patent. AbbVie, the maker of Humira, filed over 130 patents on that single drug, 130. That strategy kept generic competition off the US market until 2023, nearly 2 decades of monopoly pricing. In Europe, biosimilar competitors entered the market years earlier, which is a major reason the price there is a fraction of ours. But there is a third layer most people have never heard of: pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs. There are 3 dominant ones: Express Scripts, CVS Caremark, and Optum Rx. Together, they manage drug benefits for over 270 million Americans. Here is how they work. A drug company sets a very high list price called the WAC, or wholesale acquisition cost. Then they pay the PBM a rebate, essentially a kickback, to get placed on the PBM's preferred drug list. The PBM is supposed to pass those savings to the insurer, who passes them to you. But a 2022 Federal Trade Commission investigation found that PBMs frequently keep a significant portion of those rebates as profit. The higher the list price, the bigger the rebate, the more the PBM makes. They have a direct financial incentive for drug prices to stay high. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is the documented finding of a federal investigation. Let's make this real. Insulin, a drug invented in 1921, paid for partly with public research dollars. In Canada, a vial of insulin costs around $30 in the United States. That same vial cost as much as $275 before public pressure forced partial price cuts. Americans with type 1 diabetes need insulin to survive, not to feel better, to survive. A 2019 study in the journal Health Affairs found that 1 in 4 American diabetics reported rationing their insulin because of cost. People were cutting doses to make vials last longer. At least 12 people died from insulin rationing between 2017 and 2020, cases documented by journalists and advocacy groups. People died because a 100-year-old drug cost 10 times more here than anywhere else in the world. What does this cost the average American? The Rand Corporation found that Americans pay 2.56 times more for brand name drugs than 32 other countries on average, and for some drugs, up to 10 times more. The Peterson Foundation estimates that Americans spend about $1,300 per person per year on prescription drugs. The average across comparable wealthy nations is $466. That gap, $834 per person, is the annual cost of this system. Multiply that by 330 million Americans, and you are looking at roughly $275 billion a year in excess spending. Not for better outcomes. The U.S. does not have better health outcomes. That money largely goes to drug company profits and PBM margins. What can you actually do? First, always ask your doctor for the generic version. If there is no generic, GoodRx and Cost Plus drugs founded by Mark Cuban can sometimes cut prices dramatically outside the insurance system entirely. Cost Plus publishes the actual manufacturing cost of drugs and adds a fixed 15% markup. That transparency alone has cut prices on some generics by 80 to 90%. Second, if you are on a brand name drug with no generic, look up the manufacturer's patient assistance program. Most large companies offer them and do not advertise them. Third, support Medicare price negotiation. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 allowed Medicare to negotiate prices on a limited number of drugs for the first time. It's a start, but it covers only 10 drugs initially, leaving the rest of the system untouched. And here is the final fact, the one they really do not want you to focus on. In 2022, the top 10 pharmaceutical companies combined made $116 billion in profit. Not revenue, profit. AbbVie alone made $21.8 billion in net income, largely on the back of Humira. The same year, roughly 30 million Americans had no health insurance. Millions more were underinsured. The system was not designed to make Americans healthy. It was designed to make this number possible, and then it was legally protected from interference. That is the real reason your prescription costs 10 times more. If this changed the way you see your pharmacy receipt, follow this channel. We post the real reason behind everyday things every single day.